afternoon, members of the press, fellow Zimbabweans, fellow Africans. Welcome to this very important press briefing from the Citizens Candidate Independent Selection Panel, which is conducting our internal election processes to produce members of parliament, councillors, and our presidential candidate. I will not take much of our time. I'm going to defer proceedings to the commissioner that is responsible for this process to brief the media, after which, as per the tradition, we are going to take a few questions. Commissioner, sir.
Right, so good afternoon, members of the press. We are once again going to give you the press and citizens. Something is wrong with this. We once again meet to give you, the press and to the citizens of Zimbabwe, an update on the CCC candidate selection process. This is in fulfillment of the mandate of the Citizens Candidates Independent Selection Panel. It is our greatest assurance and endeavor to deliver candidates that are a product of free, fair, credible, and transparent process. We remain guided by the values, principles, and objectives of CCC candidate selection regulations and procedures. As highlighted at our first press briefing, the CCC candidate selection process comprises of 4 key milestones. That is, candidate nomination, candidates vetting, candidates caucuses, declaration of successful candidates. The panel is committed to updating the press and the citizens on the candidate selection outcomes at all stages of the process, and in this case, the focus is on candidates nomination. Candidate selection process commenced in earnest in all the 10 provinces on the 5th of April 2023. Despite some teething problems necessitated by logistical challenges, the nomination process had an overwhelming response with success rate in all the 210 constituencies and all the wards countrywide. The nominated candidates are now undergoing the second stage of selection process, which is vetting, after which the vetted candidates will go for the third stage of validation, which we will announce the final list of successful candidates. In the circumstances, the summary outcome of the candidates' nomination after consulting stakeholders, village and street committees is as follows. In local authority nominations, nominations have been received from all the 36,000 villages and thousands of streets and 1,970 wards. For the House of Assembly nominations, we have received nominations from all 210 constituencies. An interesting phenomenon has been noted in some hotly contested constituencies. For instance, a constituency where 11 nominations were received for 1 seat. The success factor for this process is also exhibited in the positive candidate nomination returns in some difficult to penetrate areas for the opposition that include Gokwe, Uzumba, Mwenezi, amongst others. Then for the big one, the presidential nomination. Mr. Chamisa Nelson has been nominated as the presidential candidate by all streets and villages whose returns are in our possession. For the women and youth nominations, although CISP is yet to finalize its tally, indications are that unprecedented number of women have been nominated. A significant number of women is also emerging in both the first past the post and the proportional representation nomination. The youth factor is another exciting and emerging aspect of the nomination process outcome, which is a positive in ensuring intergenerational synergies within CC. Now coming to the vetting. So the credentials and track record checklist for candidate selection. The vetting and security checklist will look into the following. Firstly, qualifications, that is in compliance with the relevant statutes of Zimbabwe, the Constitution, the Electoral Act, CCC Candidate Selection Procedures Manual, community standing and track record, performance in communities, political history and record, capacity and capability and competence, security, integrity, ethics, loyalty and service record. Then we move on to the caucuses. A date has been set for the caucuses that will happen all over the country, for which we shall announce the name of successful candidates. In conclusion, as we embark on the vetting stage of candidate selection, it is prudent to assure citizens that all nominated candidates will receive fair and equal opportunities during the process. Yes, we confirm that we have received complaints and grievances from across the countries, and these grievances are being handled by that particular committee which is specifically made for that. We also have a few issues here in Harare where we are still just concluding those processes, but it's just a few ones. The procedure and the process in terms of our procedure manual is clear, but what we have given you is what we have so far. So, as I've said, there are few words in which we are still yet to receive returns, just in case we may get one or two nominations from there. So, at this juncture, the process is not yet complete, but for those that we have received, resoundingly, Mr. Nelson Chamisa is the only candidate that was chosen. All right, so let me just clarify. The vetting process, as I have highlighted in terms of the criteria that one has to meet, it's in terms of the parties' procedures and manual. So they've got a committee that is specifically set up to do that particular vetting. Now, the last stage now are the caucuses that are going to be happening in the respective wards, in the respective villages. So, for example, let's say after the vetting process in a particular ward or any particular constituency, we are now left with two candidates. So that caucus will then deal with those two candidates so that that particular constituency emerges with one candidate, so to speak. So there is then need for consensus within the ward or the constituency to then come up with one candidate, which we are going to announce in due course. If there is none, then I will defer to the political party to address that question. Thank you.
From the Commission, I'm going to deal with the question on from Studio 7 around PWDs. Excuse me. Of course, we have made a decisive and clear position that our processes must be all-inclusive of different sections of society. If you note from the number of nominations that we've received, you have seen people from different races, you have seen people from different genders, you have seen people from different tribal and cultural background. Why this is important for us to submit the process in the hands of the citizens, because it is them who are able to deploy. But nonetheless, you can look at where the party deploys, particularly for proportional representation in parliament and in local authorities. That's where we have the ability to be able to deploy people of different backgrounds, and definitely you will see from our process. And not only that, if you look at the composition of our panel, we also have people who are in the commission, particularly in Bulawayo, who's actually from the community of people living with disabilities. So it shows our stern commitment. It shows that we are all inclusive, and we're going to make sure. And as if they've said, it's very interesting because the current process produced what ordinarily internal party primaries would not have produced, because you are seeing the elderly, you are seeing younger people, you are seeing a lot of people, even with competence, being nominated. Remember that our process was happening in a two-tier system. conversing with the people in the villages and the streets, but also talking to stakeholders. So there are some people who actually came from the stakeholders, who were not necessarily from the street point person, to show that we want it to be more inclusive, to show that we want to make sure that everyone who has got the capacity and whom the society and the community feels must be forwarded are the people who are going to be vetted, after which we go to the last and final stage of validation. From validation during our caucuses, we're going to then make it public. Of course, it is the duty of the commission to do that, to make sure that they announce the final list of the successful candidates that are going to be representing CCC, and we expect that process to be done in the next few days. Thank you very much. Until if there are, yes?
The diaspora, how were they involved?
Of course, the diaspora plays a very important role in our consultative processes, because if you look at some of the stakeholders are people who have worked with particular constituencies, not diaspora in its entirety, but there are certain individuals, certain institutions, certain fellow Zimbabweans in the diaspora who have worked. Remember that when we started our Mgwazo program, we twinned certain rural constituencies with the diaspora. So those naturally are part and parcel of the strategic stakeholders that have been consulted, so that they give their words, so that they give their views in terms of who should represent community in those words. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mlombe.
Okay, there are also some characters that we have seen that are already celebrating. What is your message? Some people are already going around saying that.
I wouldn't advise any champion and any citizen to celebrate anything in this particular stage, because this is the stage for nominations and our process is 3 stages after, because there's going to be a very important security vetting process. And of course, after that, you know, the caucus is going to make a decisive view of the citizens in terms of who should be the candidates preferred in the constituency. So it is not only premature, but it is politically unstrategic for anyone to celebrate. But it is important for people to be happy, because we're a happy movement. All these people are valued in our movement. You realize that some of the people who might not make it are people who are going to be eligible to be deployed in other strategic sectors of government when we form the next government come September this year. Thank you very much. Yes, I think there's a whole question.
You mentioned a very interesting section, which is the security vetting. What's the process going to be like? Especially considering when we talk of security issues, we're also talking of convictions, candidates who might have.
Of course, that's a very important question. This process is not intended to target people that have been convicted through persecution by prosecution. This is a security vetting of one's credentials. You know that we broadly belong to the democratic tradition and the democratic family. So these are security issues that must be looked for, one's history and their past in terms of their qualification. And as they've read out, there's a certain vetting committee that was set by the movement, which is looking at those things. That's why some of the candidates have already been contacted to submit to the vetting committee their curriculum vitae, so that the department can be able to vet in terms of one's credentials, where they are coming from. Because at the end of the day, this is a citizen's project, but we must be able to look at who that particular individual are, so that we avoid some of the problems that we've witnessed before, broadly as a democratic family.
Can you confirm that Jim Kunade?
Look, I'm not the commission, and I might not be able to confirm any individual that has been nominated. What we can do at this stage is to make it known and public that we have received nominations. In fact, the report that we got from the commission proves that there are more than 2,000 people that have been nominated only for the 210 constituencies. There are more than 30,000 forms that have been received for people who want to go to council. So there's an overwhelming subscription and appetite for Zimbabweans to be deployed for this important national duty come 2023 election. So the said individuals being nominated are going to be confirmed after the vetting. After the vetting, people get validated, and only in the final stage are you going to have the names of people who are going to successfully represent CCC. So at this stage, there are more than 30,000 people that wants to go to council, more than 2,000 that want to go to parliament, according to the nominations from the citizens. So after all these processes, the commission will obviously make it public in terms of the people who are going to be successful in these processes. came in their big numbers in this process, because it shows that the people love their movement, that the people want change. And as has been assured by the Commission and the movement, that we're going to adhere to our rules and guidelines and make sure that we produce the best council that has been built by the people. Fellow Zimbabweans, fellow Africans, thank you. Have a great day.